Listen, do you hear that? It's not the wind outside, and it's definitely not the noise on your TV. It's the sound of something massive, like giant stones grinding together deep underground, starting to crack. Most of us are too busy counting our savings or planning for a happy new year to notice, like passengers on a sinking ship arguing over who gets the best cabin while the water rises. But 2026 isn't just a date on a calendar. It's a filter for the soul. The gap between what you think is safe and what is actually falling apart is shrinking every second. Please listen closely, because the grinding has already begun. My science teacher back in Michigan once told us about a rule that governs everything in the universe. It's called entropy. It sounds like a big scary word, right? Like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually very simple. Entropy is just a fancy way of saying that the universe is always trying to get messy. Think about your garden. If you stop pulling the weeds take over. If you leave a hot cup of cocoa on the table, it doesn't stay hot. It loses its heat to the cold air around it. Energy always wants to spread out. It wants to flow. It's a law of physics. It's not something you can argue with. Not even my Baba, and he's a total math whiz who calculates everything down to the decimal. But here is the part that most people miss, Grandma, Grandpa. Listen closely. Entropy is the reason why your good deeds and your hard work might actually be putting you in danger. See, most of us spend our entire lives trying to fight entropy by building walls. We think if we can just lock ourselves inside a tight little box of safety, we'll be okay. We hoard our money in big banks. We collect diplomas like trophies. We perform our religious duties like we're punching a time card at a factory. One prayer, check. One donation, check. One more good person point, check. We think we are building a fortress to keep the chaos out. But in science, we have a different name for a fortress like that. We call it a closed system. And a closed system is a death trap. Imagine a battery sitting in a heavy iron box, completely disconnected from the world. It's not giving light to a flashlight. It's not powering a phone to call a friend. It's just sitting there, holding onto its power, trying to stay full. But even if no one uses it, that battery still dies. It leaks. It corrodes. It turns into a toxic mess from the inside out. Why? Because the energy inside has nowhere to go. It's trapped. That is exactly what happens to our souls when we try to earn our way into heaven by our own effort. When we think we can build our own ladder, step by step, prayer by prayer, we are turning ourselves into a closed system. We aren't looking for a connection. We are looking for a transaction. We are saying, look at me. Look at what I've saved. Look at how much energy I've hoarded. But the law of entropy says that any system that stops exchanging energy with the outside world will eventually collapse. It has to. This is why I'm so worried about 2026. I look at the world around me and I see so many hollow trees. Do you know what I mean? You've seen them in the woods after a long winter. From a distance, they look magnificent. Their bark is thick, their branches reach for the clouds, and they look like they could survive a hurricane. They are the perfect neighbors, the perfect churchgoers, the people who always have the right answer. But if you tap on the trunk, it's empty. Thump, thump. Inside those trees, entropy has won. Because they closed themselves off. Because they cared more about looking green than actually growing. They stopped the flow of life. They stopped forgiving. They stopped truly loving their neighbors. They replaced real, messy, flowing connection with cold, hard calculations. They became high-entropy systems. They are standing there right now looking so strong, but they are just shells. They are waiting for that big wind I told you about. When that wind hits in January, it won't matter how thick their bark is. It won't matter how many good deed points they've calculated. Because they are hollow, they have no internal strength to push back. They will be the very first to snap, crack. My Baba's downstairs right now, and he's doing exactly what the world tells him to do. He's closing the system, he's checking the locks, looking at the bills, trying to make sure our little box is perfectly sealed against the storm. He thinks he's building a fortress, but he doesn't realize he's building a tomb. You see, the only way to beat entropy isn't to build a thicker wall. It's to become an open system. It's to stop trying to hold on to your own heat and start letting the energy of something much bigger flow through you. If you are just a wire that connects the power plant to the light bulb, you don't have to worry about running out of energy. The power isn't yours to begin with. It's just passing through. That's the secret no one tells you. Your ladder is a closed system. It's made of your own tired wood and your own shaky hands. But the bridge? The bridge is different. The bridge is an open invitation. It's a connection that never runs out of energy because it's plugged into the source of life itself. Please, Grandma, don't be a hollow tree. Don't let your heart become a closed system where love goes to die. Open the door before the deadbolt clicks shut. Stop trying to calculate your way to safety and just let the flow back in. Now I want to talk about that boy from Michigan, Kareem. He's only 11 years old and his life is usually filled with school, Michigan snow, and the quiet pressure of being the son of an engineer. His baba, his dad, is a real math whiz. He's the kind of man who believes that if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. He lives by blueprints and decimals. But on that freezing Tuesday in December, Kareem saw something that no calculator in the world could ever explain. Most people hear a story like Kareem's, and they only ask one question. Is it real? They want to know if there are actual soldiers or actual bombs coming. But when we look at this as a case study of the human mind, we find a hidden variable that is much more important. We find a map of meaning. You see, Grandma, Grandpa, the doctors will tell you that when a heart stops ticking, the brain enters a state of total crisis. But it doesn't just quit. It does something amazing. It takes every fear you've hidden, every truth you've sensed but never said, and it encodes them into symbols. It builds a bridge between the gray world we see and the bright light of what is actually true. Kareem saw a massive iron door sliding shut. He didn't hear a bang. He heard it sliding, silent as a shadow. Why a door? Why not a wall or a mountain? Because his brain was identifying a specific psychological reality, the event horizon. It's the point where a choice becomes final. His mind took the abstract urgency of the year 2026 and turned it into something he could hear, the sound of stone grinding on stone. Grr. That noise wasn't just imagination. It was his brain's way of solving a crisis of meaning before the system locked him out. And then there were the scars. This is where it gets really interesting for those of us who like to think deeply. Kareem was raised in a mosque. His Baba told him stories about the prophets, but he was always taught that Isa, Jesus, was saved from the cross. His preconceived memory told him there should be no wounds. But in the Kwang Kong, that vast space between life and death, Kareem saw holes in the wrists. Think about the conflict that created in an 11-year-old's head. His brain was overriding years of lessons to show him a hidden variable. It was showing him that the ladder his dad was building, the one made of 5 times a day prayers and earning a ticket, was missing a foundation. The scars weren't just a detail. They were a psychological software update. They were the brain's way of saying, the old rules don't work in this new winter. He saw the book of life, and he saw names fading away like breath on a cold window. Whoosh, gone. People who are cynical will say, oh, he's just a kid with a fever. But they are missing the point. When we look at this through the lens of neuropsychology, we see that Kareem's mind was creating what we call a Tikien Ngien Mao, an archetypal vision. These aren't just random dreams. These are the same symbols humanity has used for thousands of years to survive. The dark ocean. The waves smashing down like bombs. Boom. Boom. He saw rich people. People with fancy college diplomas and bags of gold trying to swim. But they were sinking. Why? Because the brain knows that in a total system, collapse, the things we hoard become anchors. They pull us under. His mind was showing him a survival map. Simplicity is the only thing that floats. The boat was old wood. It was beat up. It was ugly. But it was the only thing that stayed above the waves. This is the map of meaning, Grandpa. It's not just a story to make us feel good. It's a series of key signs designed to bypass our logic and talk directly to our survival instinct. Kareem's brain wasn't just dreaming. It was identifying the structural cracks in our world that we are too smart to notice. While his Baba is downstairs staring at the TV, worried about gas prices and bank accounts, Kareem is upstairs writing in a school notebook. He's not looking at the news, he's looking at the map. He knows that the sound of the TV is actually the sound of the door. We need to stop arguing about whether the light was hot like the sun or warm like a quilt. We need to start looking at the directions on the map. Because when the spiritual winter arrives in January and the shadow passes over our hearts, we won't need a calculator. We will need to know which way the bridge goes. We will need to know if our names are still shining on the page or if they are disappearing into the cold Michigan air. If you've been lost, if you've been trying to build a ladder that just feels too short, don't ignore that sinking feeling in your gut. That feeling is your own brain trying to draw you a map. It's trying to tell you that the boat is waiting and the door is almost shut. I look at my Baba downstairs, staring at the TV with his brow all crinkled up, and I realize something that makes my heart ache. My dad is the smartest person I know. He can fix a complex engine and solve a math problem faster than I can even read it. So why does he shove an apple in my mouth when I try to tell him about the bridge? Why is he so terrified of the one thing that could actually save us? It's not because he's a bad person, Grandma. It's not even because he doesn't love me. It's because of what my science teacher calls the wall. You see, your brain has a tiny little guard dog inside it called the amygdala. For most people, that dog only barks at big scary things, like that semi-truck sliding toward us on the ice. Whoosh. But for someone like my dad, who has spent his whole life building a world out of perfect decimals and blueprints, that guard dog is always on high alert. To my Baba, his ladder isn't just a religious thing, it's his identity. It's the floor he stands on. When I tell him that his ladder is too short, or that Isa is the bridge, his brain doesn't hear good news. It hears a sledgehammer hitting his house. Bam! His guard dog starts barking like crazy because, if I'm right, then everything he's worked for, every prayer he's whispered on that hospital floor, every good deed he's calculated is a mistake. His brain is literally trying to protect him from a threat that is actually a miracle. It's a niche li, a paradox. The smarter you are, the thicker you build your walls. And the thicker your walls, the harder it is to see the light through the cracks. I know some of you have kids or friends just like my dad. Maybe they are scientists or doctors, or maybe they just believe that if they work hard enough, they'll be okay. You've tried to argue with them. You've tried to show them the Bible, but the more you talk, the more they lock the door. Please don't be mad at them. Their brains are just trying to keep them safe in a world that is melting away. You can't argue with a guard dog, Grandpa. You can't reason with a wall. When I stood on the edge of that canyon and saw my dad fall into the dark, I wanted to scream until my throat bled. But Jesus didn't yell at him. He didn't tell him he was stupid for building a short ladder. He just laid down. He became a bridge that was so big, so wide, that even a man with a wall around his heart could eventually find a way across. We don't need to win an argument with our family. We need to create a chanjong, a shock of love so big that it bypasses the guard dog. We need to pray for a crack to appear in their wall before the big wind of 2026 hits. Because once that wall starts to crumble, they won't be looking for their calculators anymore. They'll be looking for a hand to hold. Baba, I'm not trying to break your heart. I'm trying to show you the only way to keep it beating. Please don't let your intelligence be the thing that keeps you on the wrong side of the canyon. The bridge is right there. All you have to do is take the first step. Grandma, Grandpa, have you ever noticed what happens to those big, fancy glass towers in the city when a massive earthquake hits? They look so strong, right? They are shiny and expensive, and they reach so high into the sky. But when the ground starts to shake, they are the first ones to shatter. Why? Because they are too stiff. They are too heavy. They have nowhere to move. This is what I mean when I talk about the spiritual winter of 2026. It's not just about snow or cold. It's a time when all the big, heavy, stiff things in our world, the banks, the rules that don't make sense, the people who think they are too big to fail, start to crumble under their own weight. My teacher calls this a system collapse. But I want to tell you a secret I learned from the light. There is a way to not just survive the earthquake, but to actually get stronger while everything else is falling apart. It's called being anti-fragile. Think about a porcelain teacup. If you drop it, it breaks. That's fragile. Now think about a plastic cup. If you drop it, it stays the same. That's just tough. But now imagine something that every time you dropped it, it turned into steel. Every time it got hit, it grew a new layer of armor. That is what Jesus wants for us. He doesn't want us to just hang on. He wants us to be the only things left standing when the big wind stops blowing. But how do we do that? It's not by buying more canned beans or hiding gold bars under the floorboards. In the vision, Jesus showed me that the only people who kept their lights burning were the ones with oil. Now, most people think oil is just fuel for a lamp, but let's look at it a different way. Imagine your soul is like the smartphone Baba is always staring at. When you have too many apps open at the same time, the phone gets hot. It starts to lag. Eventually, the battery dies because it's trying to do too much. Grandma, every grudge you hold against your sister, every time you refuse to speak to your son because of something he did 10 years ago, that is an app running in the background of your soul. It's taking up what I call your brain bandwidth. It's eating your energy. Jesus told me that forgiveness isn't just a nice thing to do. It is a survival algorithm. When you forgive someone, you aren't saying what they did was okay. You are just clicking close all apps. You are Don Deponho, clearing your cache. You are freeing up your bandwidth so that when the crisis hits in 2026, your processor is fast. You can see the exit when everyone else is trapped in the smoke. You can hear the whisper of the bridge when everyone else is deafened by the sound of the crashing towers. If your oil jar has a leak because you are holding on to hate, you will be empty when the wind comes. Drip, drip, drip. Every angry thought is a drop of life wasted. There's something else too. In Tuya Trochoi, game theory, they say that the best way to win a dangerous game is to stop playing for yourself and start playing for the team. My Baba thinks he can build a bunker just for us. He thinks if the door is thick enough, we will be safe. But the light showed me that a loving home is the only bunker that actually works. The devil is terrified of a family that actually loves each other. Why? Because a family that loves is resilient. If one person falls, the others pull them up. If one person loses their candle, the others share their light. The big wind of January is going to try to isolate us. It's going to make us stare at our phones, get angry at the news, and argue with our neighbors. It wants us to be hollow trees, standing alone, stiff and empty. Because a hollow tree is easy to snap, crack. But a Kong Jong No, a small, tight community of people who forgive quickly and love loudly. That is like a forest where the roots are all tangled together underground. You can't knock down one tree without knocking down the whole forest, and you can't knock down a forest. So here is your Kung Vo strategy for tonight. Turn off the news. It's just junk data that slows down your system anyway. Instead, call that brother you haven't talked to. Hug your grandkids and tell them the truth. Open your Bible and fill your bandwidth with words that don't rot. We aren't just missing the boat. We are choosing which system we belong to. Are you part of the heavy glass tower that is about to shatter? Or are you part of the bridge, the open system that gets stronger the harder the wind blows? Please, Grandpa, promise me you'll start closing the apps tonight. I don't want you to be out of breath when the grinding starts. I want you to be ready. I want you to be the one who carries the light for everyone else. I'm sitting here in my room in Dearborn, looking out at the thick Michigan snow, and I realize that we aren't just waiting for a new year anymore. We are witnessing the end of a very old way of being human. Everything I saw, the entropy that turns hollow trees into dust, the way our own brains build walls to protect our pride, and the deep map of meaning hidden in our souls, it all leads to this one moment. 2026 isn't a date on a calendar. It's a crossroads in our evolution. You see, Grandpa, choosing the bridge isn't just a religious act. It's an evolutionary choice. It's the moment you decide to stop being a closed system that hoards energy and starts becoming an open system that lets life flow through. The latter, my Baba is trying to build downstairs. It's a beautiful effort, but it's fragile. It's made of the same stiff, heavy logic that makes glass towers shatter during an earthquake. But the bridge? The bridge is anti-fragile. It was built by someone who already survived the crash so that you don't have to. Walking across it doesn't require a first-class ticket or a perfect record. It just requires you to drop the heavy bags of junk, the grudges, the ego, the need to be right, and step out into the light. I can still hear the TV downstairs. Grrr. That grinding sound is getting louder every second. The gap in the door is becoming a sliver. January is almost here, and with it, the spiritual winter that will test every root and every wall. Please don't wait for the click. Don't wait until the bandwidth of your soul is so clogged with fear that you can't see the exit. Right now, in the quiet of your own heart, you can choose to be an open system. You can choose to be the forest with tangled roots instead of the hollow tree standing alone. I promised Jesus I would tell you. I promised him I would help you find the bridge before the storm hits. Will you help me finish the mission? If you understand that your own ladder will never reach the sky and you're ready to step onto the bridge of grace today, I want you to do one thing. I want you to confirm your place on the boat before the grinding stops. Type these 4 words right now. I choose the bridge. Let it be your Jiao Woke, your contract with the light. Let it be the moment you clear your cache and open your soul to the flow that never runs out. Write it down so that when the black wind blows, your name shines like a star on the page. My Baba thinks I'm delirious, but I've never seen things more clearly. The bridge is strong, the captain is waiting, and I love you very much.